We're going official now. Recording is started, and I'd like to welcome everyone to the December Leadership Winston-Salem Leaders in Lunch. And we are excited today to have two of our favorite people in the area, Dudley Watts and Lee Garrity from the county and the city, to be here with us today to walk through some questions that we have about the services that the county and the cities provide to our residents, and where those lines intersect, where they parallel each other, and where they never want to cross. So it'll be an interesting conversation. Dudley and Lee have, well, mostly Dudley, I guess, and Lee's along for the ride, have figured out how they're going to conduct themselves during the conversation. We're going to have a little fun with this. So being the holiday season, I think that's totally appropriate. I'm going to go ahead and do an introduction for both of our panelists today. And we'll start with Dudley Watts. He's the Leadership Winston-Salem class of 2009. Dudley is maybe, I'm sorry?
You got to say best class ever, right? That's kind of what happens.
But I'm the class of 2020, so that wouldn't be true. So anyway, Dudley is married to Kathy Watts, a professional mom and writer, and they have 4 almost grown-up children, 3 in college and 1 out. Dudley grew up in Sanford, North Carolina, graduated with a Bachelor of Science degree from North Carolina State in economics with a technical option in computer science, and attended graduate school at UNC Chapel Hill, receiving a Master of Public Administration degree. Prior to beginning his service in Forsyth County in 2006, he worked for several years with a national consulting firm conducting operations reviews and other studies for local government clients. Dudley also served as an assistant county manager and finance officer for Pender County for about 3 years, and worked as county manager in Granville County for 9 years. He served on the Leadership Winston-Salem Board, Healthcare Access Board, Wake Forest Translational Sciences Advisory Committee, Old Hickory Council Boy Scouts of America Board, and is a member of Centenary United Methodist Church. We welcome you today and thank you so much for your time. And Lee became the city manager for Winston-Salem in July 2006. In this position, he reports to us and is accountable to the mayor and the city council for the operation of Winston-Salem city government. Since joining the city in 1990, Lee has served as senior budget and evaluation analyst, organizational effectiveness director, and assistant city manager. Before joining the city, he worked in Washington, D.C., first as a staff member for the U.S. Senate Committee on Finance, and subsequently on the staff of the Federal Elections Commission. He holds graduate and undergraduate degrees in public administration from George Mason University in Virginia. Lee is a member of the International City County Management Association, the North Carolina City County Management Association, and the Winston-Salem Rotary. He currently serves on the Downtown Winston-Salem Partnership and the Winston-Salem Chamber of Commerce. Lee is married to his wife, Kathy, and they have 2 adult daughters. So again, Lee, thank you for being here with us today. We look forward to this conversation moving forward. And I'm going to let you kind of tell me how you'd like to run this meeting. I've got a list of questions. Do you want me to start with the first question and then you can share with us how you're going to respond?
So we sent over a few slides we used in Leadership Winston, and we thought we would spend just a few minutes kind of talking about sort of the general structure a little bit, and then we'll dive straight into the questions. So that'll be the funner part. So we'll do a little bit of the boring piece of it first. And if you want to, you can do the city first. Well, however it's in the slides, we'll take it as it goes. But I think Jared was going to pop up
Jared,
slides.
you can go ahead with sharing that then.
Technology is amazing.
All right.
All right. I see a face up there that I also see on the screen. Councilmember Kevin Monday. Yeah, we've done this before, but this is City Council is made up of 8 wards. Most people call them districts, we call them wards. They're elected by their wards, and then there is one mayor, number 9, who is number 1, who is elected at large by all the voters. But that's how we're structured. We don't have another election until 2024. Next slide. There is the current boundaries of our wards. We are in the middle of balancing our wards right now based on the 2020 census. We try to keep our law requires you to keep one person, one vote, keep it within 5%. We try to keep it, county does as well, at a much lower amount. So we're shooting to be about 1% or less, because of, you only do this, you only have to do this every 10 years. And so there's growth always that's going to come about. So we're trying to kind of heads out a little bit, and council's going to be working through that, and adjusting their line board boundaries, and probably by spring of this 2022. There's the organizational chart for Winston-Salem. I always like to point out that at the very top of the org chart are the citizens of Winston-Salem. They are the owners, the stockholders, the taxpayers, the fee payers. That's who everybody works for, starting with our mayor and city council. And then you can see it goes down to myself, the city attorney, all of the boards and commissions. We have a lot of boards and commissions. Many graduates at Leadership Winston-Salem are now on boards and commissions. In fact, the mayor has a very deliberative process of trying to get some of those graduates as well onto our boards and commissions. And then you can see all the different services we provide and the people down there who do the real work below me. Next slide. It could be Dudley next. There we go.
Yeah. All right. So there's our elected officials for the county. You can see them around. We're not going to take time to kind of run through each one of them. Let me make just a few quick comments about kind of overall structure and sort of interaction with city and county. So, North Carolina has what's called overlapping jurisdictions, which means you've got counties that are geographically across every part of North Carolina. Cities are kind of overlap over top of them. So you are a county resident and a city resident if you're in a municipal area. If you think about North Carolina, it's you've got a few big urban areas, but it's mostly rural. And in those rural areas, a lot of the whole local government presence really is the county as part of that. And so you've got very different structures for cities kind of across North Carolina. Counties have, if you look at org charts across counties, they are going to look more similar than city org charts will look, just because we've got this sort of basic framework of local government services that we provide. And obviously it's reason why we're talking today, because coordination is so important. You would think that all elected boards of the counties would be the same across North Carolina. They are not. And so we've got a structure with 7 county commissioners. And jump on to the next slide and I'll show you how we're structured across the county. We have districts that act kind of similar to wards. And so you'll see that district map. So we've got 2 districts. We've got District A and District B, and then you've got 1 county commissioner that serves at large. And so Ted Kaplan is actually our at-large commissioner and has been in that role for a number of years. District A is a majority minority district that was really created to ensure that you had minority representation on the board. And then District B is the other district. And so you've got 4 out of District B, 2 out of District A, and much like the city of Winston, we try to keep, we have to keep that within the 1 man, 1 vote sort of requirements. And so, and we did redistrict. We actually, the numbers did not change over the last 10 years enough that we had to redistrict, but we did move, I think, 3 precincts to better look forward to the future around how the districts are structured. So flip on the next slide and I'll talk about the org chart a little bit. One thing that you'll notice that's very different than our org chart is very similar to the city. You've got the citizens in charge. You've got an elected board of commissioners. You have 2 elected department heads. You got an elected sheriff and elected register of deeds. And then you've got the human services component that's a county responsibility. That's state administered, state supervised, locally administered health and human services. You got our responsibilities for the community college, and then our responsibilities with the schools. And so we actually fund facilities across all of that. Counties were kind of set up to be the facilities funder. So we fund the community college facilities, the schools, and then also the courts facilities, and that creates confusion, which we'll talk about. And then you got the basic services kind of underneath it. that bottom box in the middle is actually the things that through the what's called the city-county agreement that we cooperate together on and have since I think the original city-county agreement was 1960s.
Yeah.
And so it really has been the cooperation really has been a hallmark of of the county for years and years. And I always attribute it, whether it's true or not, back to sort of our Moravian heritage and the fact that Moravians really were communal. Cooperation was a big part of how they grew and prospered in the city. And then I guess the other thing to just keep in mind is that, one of the things that I deal with is there are 9 municipalities actually in Forsyth County, Winston-Salem being the largest, having almost 2/3 of the voters. And so that creates some opportunities for cooperation, but we do cooperate with some of the other municipalities, particularly the Kernersville, because they are the other sort of full service municipality in the county, provide police and fire. The other municipalities do not. And so there's a certain level of complexity that we operate in across this, but it works really well. So that is like the elevator talk on city and county stuff. So I think that's my last slide. So we'll jump into the fun questions.
Yeah.
And so do we need to say again that we're doing this in newlywed show format? I don't know if people came in and we talked about it and said, because one of the issues is that when we do one of these presentations,
Back and forth.
we sort of, if he says something, I'll kind of go in that direction. So we wanted to answer the questions blindly. And so we'll see if we agree on it.
We get like a honeymoon package or something.
That's right.
Yeah. So not
We
all
gotta
of
stay together. That's the important part.
So not all of them are set up to be able to maybe work that way, but I do have a question that came up as you were doing the presentation that I've wondered about. And with us having the last census happening right when COVID was rolling out and trying to do an accurate count when people were sheltering in place and there were just so many unusual situations, do you think that the count is as accurate as it should be?
That's actually a good example. There was a lot of coordination and cooperation between the city and the county at every level during that, as well as all the towns. There was a lot of work done, a lot of efforts done. I think I would tell you probably that our numbers are probably as good as most other jurisdictions, but I think probably across the country, what I've read and heard is that there is still a significant undercount, particularly in the Hispanic population. So, but as far as they did it digitally, I think COVID by itself may not have been the only issue. There were also some political issues driving some of the undercount, but we certainly worked very, very hard, including sending our own people door to door, not just using the census. We actually hired the city hired local folks, local activists and folks that had kind of the grassroots connection to try to encourage folks to sign up.
I think COVID was certainly a challenge through it, but if you think about the political environment we're in at the time, and to some extent still are, immigration policy level discussions nationally probably affected that more than anything else, and we know that was an issue here. So. Okay. I will say, great example of cooperation. We funneled all that census work through the planning department, which is jointly funded by the city and county, and so
they work really well together.
Yeah, I mean, we end up paying. We because of that, we didn't have discussions about who pays for what.
So our first question is about the separation really of duties and where citizens get confused about. Who to call for what issues, and wondering what the most common services are that get confused as they relate to which entity is responsible.
All at the same time.
No, we'll let one of us go first. We'll flip flop.
All right. So I've got, you can see this. I've got road maintenance, schools, and animal control.
Okay.
What do you got, Dudley?
Well, first of all, you can tell he has a lot of staff helping him because I had to handwrite mine.
No, I did it myself.
That's right.
I did it myself.
Oh,
I did.
Well, that means you're just better than it. So I said everything. That's right.
Well, that's true too.
And I said it's pretty common to be asked how everything in the city is going whenever I go anywhere. And so that's like what people ask me, and I go, I think it's going great. So because I can always say that, and I really don't try to correct most folks, because I found it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, if people just, most citizens are just going about their lives. There's so much they have to do, technology, everything's going on. So when they have a problem, they don't really want to have to bother with, well, is that the city, the county, the schools? They just want to get it solved. It's typically the way it works.
Yeah, and I'll tell you a story. So I was in my Sunday school class one day, and one of the people there said, I got this big party at my house, and I got leaves that need to be picked up, and can you make sure I get my leaves picked up? And I thought about it for a second. I said, well, I couldn't explain to her I really don't do leaves. So I texted Lee in the Sunday school class and said, and y'all probably know the person who asked me, but anyway, I said, can you make sure that so-and-so's leaves get picked up by whatever? And anyway, so that was a whole lot easier than trying to explain anything.
The first year that I was manager in 2006 was a difficult leaf season, and that was my first year really being involved in leaves at all. And I had a gentleman call me up and tell me, using a lot of 4-letter words, that he was going to take a billboard out with my name on it if I didn't get his leaves up. So anyway. Yeah,
and so the other thing I put on my list is that I get other confusion. I also get it because of the courts and the schools. And so there is a clerk of court, and there's a clerk to the county commissioner, and there's a clerk to the city council. And so Monday morning, when everybody's trying to go to court, we get a zillion calls about where am I on the thing or whatever. And so and we actually go online and answer them here. But part of that complexity is we do have a responsibility in the courthouse. We have to build it, and so we've got a presence there. And so people just get that confused all the time. And then also with the schools, because we do school facilities. So a lot of confusion.
All right. Thank you. And what are the most important areas you collaborate on? And I think you had one of those slides that really listed out the areas that the two collaborate. So is there one that you feel is the most important, or do you just kind of want to run through those?
Well,
so I'll play the game.
I'll do mine. Yeah, we're gonna play the game. So, and I'm complicated and you probably can't read that, but what it says is big picture. If I think where we cooperate more than anybody else, that's huge and nobody thinks about it, is utilities and planning. Planning because this community has grown in a more responsible and managed way because we got a joint city county planning department. And then utilities, in my prior job, if absent a consolidated utilities, we would fight like hell along with the other municipalities about who's going to serve water in certain areas. It was about half of my job when I served Granville, just trying to keep people from killing each other over who was going to run a water and sewer line, and you end up running water and sewer lines in stupid places when it happens. And so you can't imagine how good this community is because of that. And Lee and I probably have a deep appreciation for that. And then there's a whole bunch of small stuff we do that just makes everything easier. And I put evidence storage. We did evidence storage a couple of years ago. We were both operating evidence storage. It was a fiasco. They did it better than we did, so we just consolidated with them. Arrestee processing. We've got city employees in our jail who do arrestee processing. That's unheard of in a lot of communities. But what it solves in terms of the investigative piece and the effort it takes to get folks inside in the jail when they need to be in jail makes a ton of sense. And then Map Forsyth, the other one, a lot of y'all might know. Map Forsyth, that's a joint effort we did a couple of years ago, and sort of became, we had all that data. It would have been easy to set up two structures to use that data. Would have cost taxpayers a lot of money to do it, but we did it together and it made a heck of a lot of sense.
Yep. I'm slightly different. I've got down where you can see planning. I left utilities off honestly because it runs so seamless as a city county operation where we have a utility commission. I didn't think about it though, which is awesome. And then public safety is Dudley. Often people say, why isn't it completely consolidated? Well, there are a lot of reasons why it's not there yet, but we have made significant strides in so many different areas in public safety that a lot of our colleagues have not. So
we're on the same page.
Yeah, good.
All right, good answers, good answers. Okay, so what is the largest recent collaborative achievement in the last 5 years of city and county working together? Lee, you go first.
You know, in 5 years, you know, in managers' lives, 5 years could be 10, and it all gets blurred together. I probably Dudley and I think in base terms for elected officials more than, but anyway, I put down forensics, Evans, and Matt Forsyth as ones that I thought were, he mentioned all of them already, but I think they're all really significant things that we've collaborated on. We've got several new ones we're working on right now, but I thought those were all good ones.
Yeah.
What you had, Dudley.
Okay, so that's cool because I really put it first, but I wrote the Aerotropolis study. The Aerotropolis work we've done. So Smith Reynolds Airport a couple of years ago used to be a sort of separate municipality. We actually consolidated into county operations about 3 or 4 years ago. And for years it had sat out there as this own thing. And East Winston residents hated it. They complained about the airport. It was a constant thing between us. The county's always owned the property, but we didn't operate the airport. It was actually an authority. And so, and when we took it over, you know, one of the first efforts was how do we get this thing to quit being such a political just disaster between us. And so we did a little study. Gail Anderson was key in that. She recognized the issues when she was the chamber person, and we really tried to start changing the dialogue. But we put the chairman of the county commissioners, Dave Plyler, and Alan Jones, mayor, chair it. They meet about every 4 to 6 months or something like that. But it's really managed to change the face and the momentum of the airport. It's now, I think, viewed more as this potential jobs creator. We got $23 million in this legislative session that just finished up to do improvements out there. And it's going to take years, but it's
really, it's very, you're right, that's a good one, because it was very difficult 5 years ago.
Very difficult. It's still not perfect.
Yeah,
it's
but
still,
you know,
and
way
better because you got this, you know, we're really unique. You got this airport that is the largest general aviation airport in the state. Without commercial traffic, it's the largest single one. It's a 4-minute Uber ride from downtown.
It's the only one of any major place that's in the urban area.
It's tucked in that urban area, but it's got a lot of residents around it. Yeah. So they, you know, they don't, but when you look at the vision for that, really is a business, economic driver in the community. You know, Garner Foods is building a manufacturing plant over there. It has the potential to change its face.
And I'm just going to throw one in there since we're talking about that. How do you think that the new jobs coming in the surrounding counties that are close by may impact that development?
From the airport related jobs like over at PTI. Yeah, you know, we don't and can't compete with PTI, but we can complement PTI. Yeah. And so I think it's awesome.
I think both the battery plant and the secret, it's not a secret about what's going to, or hopefully is coming to PTI, will have significant overflow to our county as well as to the airport.
Absolutely.
Good stuff. All right, you ready? Your next question. What are the most common challenges of working together?
That's our first one.
You're first, yeah.
All right, let's see what I wrote.
Let's see what you wrote.
Let's see. If I can read my own handwriting, probably not. I put resistance to change. And then there's sort of 2 levels of that. One of them is sort of a board level resistance to change where there's sort of policy level disagreements about things. But then the more powerful one sometimes is actually at the staff level resistance to change, which sometimes can kind of bleed over into the political piece if the folks in there, you know, but so it's resistance to change.
Yeah, I started out with the policy differences between the elected boards. And really, and Dudley's right, resistance to change is, we deal with that even internally within our organizations a lot. as well as in every neighborhood. Any new planning idea, there's always going to be resistance. But I think part of the policy difference are just natural because the city represents a much more urbanized area. Forsyth County commissioners represent that, but they also represent very rural areas. So it's a different, it's a little bit different how they, so there's, what you can allow in as far as zoning and way up off Germantown Road where Dudley lives is different than what you can allow in Washington Park.
When you have a bunch of cattle,
Yeah.
you probably can't have it.
Yes, you can. You just got to have a lot of land.
All right, that's good. And then what are the advantages? What are the biggest advantages that you see?
Shoot, I believe.
Okay. I put down cost sharing, tax equity. We talked about that a lot because the more we can work on things together, the citizens, and they pay city taxes, they pay county taxes. And so trying to come up with that best bang for their buck, I think is a really good thing. And then I think also that common purpose about quality of life. Most people are not in that business, and we are in that business. And so I think those things bind us together, all of us, not just Dudley and I, but our boards, our staff. It binds us together because the goal of local government is really about maintaining and improving quality of life. I think it's just very helpful that we have that common ground that you don't see a lot at higher levels of government.
Yeah, and I'd say on that, the idea that we do try to figure out whenever we're faced with something, whether it's on his side or ours, whose lane is it in? So a lot, it's like, I'm not going to go out and build pocket parks all over the place, but I am going to build big, we do have this park plan that has us building big regional parks, in the Blues Lake example. So figuring out what you do well, and when am I treading on his side. So anyway, what I put is efficiencies. Obviously, you always consolidate for efficiencies. And I said, kind of reduced confusion around who does what. And then the last one is really, if you ask yourself the question, whether you're doing it from a management perspective or from a policy level, what's the best thing for the citizens? Because the one thing that we have absolutely in common is we got the same set of citizens.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, they might elect different board members, and city council may look different than the county, but at the end of the day, they're the same people.
Yeah, and I would say every elected official I've ever worked for, I mean, they get up and they want to improve their community. They just have different ways, different ideas of how to get there, who's going to pay for it, but that commonality of wanting to make things better.
And what we see at the local level that you don't see at the state level isn't it interesting? Because the legislature and the governor argue about things, and but it's the same voters.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, but because ours is closer to the people, there is this sense that it's the same voters, and the voters aren't calling Lee saying do this and calling me or calling Mayor Jones or one of his council members or or Richard Linville and saying do something different for the most part. So
all right, and then what do you see as the largest opportunity for collaboration between the city and the county?
Yours or mine?
I think it's mine.
All right, go.
I forgot what I said. This is going to be interesting to me too. Let's see. I said law enforcement is probably an opportunity, more and more law enforcement kind of cooperation sort of stuff. And we're actually working on some things right now, but it's also the most difficult because you've got an elected sheriff and an appointed police chief. So there are opportunities there, but if you think about it, crime doesn't know where the city limits end. And so and now it's even a little more complicated because you got the sheriff in the schools, and so you got you got that piece that gets complicated. So it's complicated.
Yeah. I put a little more granular. I said 911 communications, all law enforcement, but right now we're really working on co-location and hopefully someday total consolidation. But we're gonna make some really big improvements just in fire and medical. That'll actually, by that on that piece alone, that will really enhance service and get the right people to somebody's house faster, which is so critical. And then I think the other big one that, you know, I think we have some opportunities on some of this stuff. This is a one-time chance. I know you got questions about ARPA. There's a one-time chance. I don't think we'll see this kind of funding, either of us again, anytime in our careers. And so the more we can cooperate on things that really transform our community, I think that's a good thing. I agree.
All right, I'm gonna skip around a little bit then, since you brought ARPA up. I'm gonna throw you off here a little bit.
All right.
So if we go down to answer 9.
Okay. All right.
So if we, yeah, talking about plans for city and county and you know, spending the ARPA money that's become available, and like you said, it's a kind of hopefully a once in a lifetime kind of opportunity. Not having another pandemic of this level, but you know, what are your plans? I think there are a lot of questions why money's not already being, you know, available widespread. So how do you manage that, and what are your plans for that in the future?
All right.
You start.
Okay, I'll start. So what I said was we're working on it. And what I can say, you know, the county commissioners have committed to trying to, you know, spend the money in the qualified census tracts or in the marginalized communities and for those impacted by that. Real quickly, you know, we went out and did, really before even the guidance was out there, we went out and kind of put an application out, got lots and lots of responses back to that. And so we are working through that right now. We have not funded very much in this first round, but part of that is just a function of we're still under the interim guidance and the interim rules. And so the only thing we can really say as we recommend funding right now is that, you know, it'll be subject to full compliance review and all that. And so, because this is, the federal government put this money out there, they put it out over a fairly long horizon. December 24 is sort of the end, but you can even extend that into 26 for capital projects. So you know, it is taking some time. And then what our plans are, we're gonna get through this round 1, and then the board's gonna take what we learned from round 1, go into a round 2. Question is, do we do a round 2 together? Do we do it separate? You know, that's pure policy. That's not anything Lee and I are gonna decide, but the question's out there. And so our hopes are we'll get to about February, have resolved round 1. There'll be substantial dollars there because we haven't funded a lot, can't fund a lot. Some of it was not, what was requested was not allowed. The compliance risk piece dropped a lot of folks out. We got to figure out how to minimize compliance risk. So we got a lot of work to do on that. That's where we are.
You just answered number 10 too. I put down transformational projects, and you can see that list here. These are things that are tied to our city council strategic plan: poverty, jobs, affordable housing, violence reduction, arts and culture. What council's done so far is we divided all of our funding into a phase 1 and phase 2. So they've approved us a much smaller tranche of about $7 million for phase 1 for what we call our restorative items. So short-term things. So we're about partnering with United Way, about to launch. Council's approved it, a grant program for it's very small grants for $25,000 up to $25,000 grants for recovery for small businesses in our qualified census tracts. They have to be small and disadvantaged businesses, as well as smaller nonprofits who are behind on their rent, behind on utilities, have direct pandemic issues. that we want to help them short-term with recovery. We've done some other small things, funded a legal aid eviction diversion program, again, helping individuals with recovery who are being evicted because they can't pay the rent. Significant amount of money we funded for violence and interruption, trying to reduce our violence, which is a huge issue for us. But the bigger projects, which are phase 2 of the transformational project, which I just listed, council is still working through a decision matrix on those, basically making sure that they are transformative, so that the hope is that you can truly do things that that can really make a difference long term. If you read the ARPA legislation, it's all through there. Words about transformation, about poverty reduction, about equity. So we're trying really hard to work through that. I think affordable housing will be a big directive for City Council. Hopefully, rolling all that out February is the plan right now. Coming back to council in January, we were blessed. We set aside 20 million of ARPA money for affordable housing. We were blessed. The state gave us another 10 million in the budget the other day. So the key there is to leverage as much affordable housing as we can. So council's actually got a retreat coming up, a workshop to make sure we're all singing out the same hymnal about what we mean by affordable housing before we spend that money.
So a lot of our efforts have been around trying to figure out whose lane we're in with all this. And so the other player that we're working with is the schools, because the schools, received a lot of money. They had about $220 million in ESSER money. And so we are sort of engaged with them around the educational attainment initiative areas that bubbled up out of our first round. We handed over to the schools. And so we're actually working kind of cooperatively with them in that process. And so they have actually funded some of the applications that came to us. We handed off to the schools for them to spend on ESSER dollars. And so what you're really trying to avoid now is duplication, and making sure that we're communicating well so that our overall ARPA response is as
We're fortunate. We both have some really good staff people.
Yeah,
they're smarter than us, and
way smarter.
Yeah, way smarter,
Yeah.
and way smarter. And but they're actually friends too, and they coordinate regularly about this, so which is helpful.
And the violence interruption thing is a good example. We've both been working in that area. Chantel Robinson and Patrice Tony are handling that together, and so that is. I mean, I put that down as
that's got some huge potential for us.
Yeah, and that the cooperation here has just been unbelievable.
So we have a question that came up about phase 1 and phase 2. Are residents able to be a part of the decision-making process on how those funds are allocated?
As far as city council, on the city side, we do a monthly public, it's on Zoom, but we do a monthly informational meeting. We have one coming up, I guess today or tomorrow, but we do one every month on Zoom. We try to have a different time of day so it rotates, but where we take questions from citizens, nonprofits, anybody can join that and ask questions. But what we're trying to do there is we had early on had a couple of public information sessions as well with city council. But yeah, we are open to any and all ideas. Dudley mentioned before. I mean, there are significant compliance requirements with this funding. The Treasury Department, the rules are very strict on reporting. And and who's held accountable is the city and the county. And neither of us look good in orange jumpsuits, so we have to make sure that the funding is spent according to the rules and that we can be audited according to those rules.
Yeah, on the county side, we did the early outreach piece, and then we've really relied on our briefing sessions. We do a briefing session every other week, every Thursday at 2. We're there. People can people can come in and communicate to us through those, and talk to board members. And so it's really been, if you go back and look at the last couple of meetings, they've been heavy on ARPA, folks addressing the board members around that. So ours has kind of been an ongoing sort of process to get that information out there. So
Yeah, actually, I just looked, ours is today, our next Harper community engagement Zoom meeting. I'll send it to staff over here. I'll send the link. I know we've been advertising online, but it's today at 3 o'clock. So we do that monthly to try to it's important that everybody understands where we are and what we're trying to do.
Yeah, I think definitely when you have that amount of money that becomes available, making sure that everyone understands all of the restrictions that you have and how you can spend that money will help people, I think, to feel more aware of how decisions are made and why some things just are not going to fit in that box.
the real challenge has been that there's literally guidance coming out every day, and so if there are more questions about what's eligible than there are answers.
It changes.
It's crazy, and school government's weighing in on it. They tried to help a little bit by saying that if you approve something while we have the interim rule, if they change the rule, you won't be hammered by it. That's the federal government saying that, and so you got to trust that. You got to trust the federal government with that. That's right. But it's a little unnerving if you want to know the truth. So.
Yeah, sometimes it's easier to wait a little bit and let things settle. And I think we found that just from the beginning of the pandemic about how to manage ourselves, to be safe. Things were changing every day. One of the questions refers back to the organizational chart that you shared. And I hope that I speak this correctly. It says looking at the organizational chart and the positions and in fact, separation of education, specifically Winston-Salem Forsyth County school system, comment on dialogue that occurs between the city and county managers relative to economic development strategies and funding. So this fits a little bit into what we're talking about. And you mentioned that the school system received their own funding, I think, through some of these new funds that are available through the federal government. So what are some of the strategies that are utilized in conversations?
I guess let me specifically about a certain area, or go back to the first part.
Yeah, it said a little bit more specifically to economic development strategies and funding.
Yeah, there's probably not an area that we're not. We are very connected in the economic development front.
Yeah, so we both contract with the chamber for part of our economic development, and then we have staff who work really well together. So anytime there's an economic development project, it's always well, and our boards both want to know, well, what's the county going to do? What's the city going to do? And so we work well, very, very well together. Most of our economic development programs and projects are contingent on participation by both of us as well as the state. So everybody seems on board where jobs are the most critical thing. They drive everything. They drive tax base. They drive the economic engine. And so I would say those are very, very commonly work together. Chamber is a huge supporter. The Winston Alliance and others, the Whitaker Park Development Authority. But we work very well together on this. Yeah, the fact that the chamber is really the front end, and we contract with them for the services around recruitment, retention. That used to be separate. It used to be the retention was the product of the chamber, and when some Business Inc. did the external recruitment a couple of years ago, we got that together, and so now we don't have this bifurcated. We're not supposed to call it the chamber. We're supposed to call it Greater Winston-Salem. Yeah, and then what is it when it's sort of a retention, but kind of it was a disaster, and so we were not as good as we could have been because of that. Now we got this singular sort of conduit. The city rules are a little different. They'll fund some things that we won't. Theirs is a little more aggressive if you probably put it in context, but a lot of times the county contribution to an economic development project is actually higher, even though theirs is more aggressive, just because our tax rate's higher. Right. And so, and even though we've got policies, every deal is a little different. So
Yep.
it all comes down to, what's going to make it work. And even though, as Dudley said, that the county typically does not do housing, there have been times when they've stepped in on housing projects as well because of the what it does for the community.
Yeah, particularly as pastor agent. We were quick to be a pastor agent for the state, and because we've got that relationship.
Well, another question that we had actually speaks to the housing and the question about where you both see opportunities for us to work together, county and city, on improving affordable housing issues.
Yeah, the county generally looks to the municipalities to be really take the lead in the affordable housing arena for the most part. The county's housing program traditionally has focused on, it's almost been an offshoot of social services. It's really been around financial literacy and helping people work through something called an IDA or individual development account to actually build the capacity to own a house, build wealth. I think the statistic was we have done more IDA lending in Forsyth County than the rest of the state has done combined for home ownership over the years. It's a pretty aggressive program, and so ours has been really two layers. It's been that, and then it's been pass-through agent for some federal and state monies. And then we do sort of some of the housing rehab work for everywhere but Winston, because again, you've got 9 other municipalities. And so that the sort of the harder part of the project support for affordable housing really has been
right. I mean, the city is typically the lead for what I call closing the gap. So often a developer for either rehabbing affordable housing or building brand new affordable housing where you're trying to get a good number of units on the market. It has to be subsidized because they've got to still make a return. So the city will step in and try to help with a certain amount of financing or grants to fill that gap so you get that property online and make those rents affordable. I would say that the pandemic has created a lot of additional, there's a lot of good things come out of the pandemic as far as things that people are working the ways they did. The pandemic really, our cooperation on homeless shelters, all that is at a level that it did not used to be because of the pandemic, because we were so much need out there for, particularly for all the different pieces, it wasn't just housing, it was all the social and health assistance. So lots of cooperation, and I think a lot of that's going to continue with our homeless, because our homeless, that's the first step if you move people to traditional housing to the workforce and then to permanent housing.
And the city of Winston-Salem is actually a HUD entitlement community, and so there's sort of things that come with that I'm not really a part of, but the housing authorities also.
Yeah, and I think our January session is actually going to talk a little bit more about housing and housing issues here too, and things that we're working on and that are coming up. But for the two of you, what is your 5 and 10 year outlook on the city and the county?
We go back to our slides.
Yeah.
Back to your slide.
Your turn.
That was
5 and 10 year, not that one. Okay.
What question was that? Was
That's 8, I think. Yeah.
This number 8, yeah.
Right. All right. Yeah, I didn't make anything simple. So kind of under 5, I know you can't read that. What I said was we've got so much stuff going on right now. So many projects that are going to be, kind of visible landscape changing kind of projects. So it's things like the new courthouse. You've got Callidium, all that work's being done, Marshall Plaza, kind of jointly to some respect through there. You've got all this ARPA money. You've got the General Assembly there was more than $300 million that flowed through the conference report to Forsyth County, but those were university projects, those were School of the Arts. I mean, I wish Milton was still doing some of the stuff he did a couple of years ago, where he was sort of the consolidator of all the things to give you a vision of where you were going to be 5 years from now. And, his thing was creating corridors, all those things. So he sort of created a vision for that, because we kind of need that, because there are so many cool things that are happening. And a lot of those will play out really over the 5 years, some over the 10-year time frame. But you've got, and a bunch of them are quality of life. But it's just going to move the community forward. I mean, you can make the case right now that we are on this precipice of sort of game changer kind of things as a result of everything that's sort of playing out right now. And so even something as simple as the opioid settlement is getting ready to come down. That'll happen in January. That's going to pump another $1 million into this community over top of all the money that's already out there to deal with substance abuse issues. SA is part of what the county has to deal with, and so we've got folks working now to figure out how to tackle that problem, which is a hard, difficult problem to tackle. But there's resources like there's never been, and you can do that kind of across the spectrum. So. And the other stuff I said is, getting institutions back on track kind of post-COVID. A lot of our institutions are still kind of struggling with how to get back on track. Schools are a great example. We got fights breaking out in schools all over the place. That's what happens when you send kids away for 12 months. They say bad things about each other on social media. They get back to school and they're going to duke it out in the cafeteria. And so we've got to get all this stuff kind of back on track around that. And then really just responding to change. We've been in this period of change, forced change around, how many people, 2 years ago would have said we'd be doing this like this right now with that screen in front of us. So what is all that going to mean? It's amazing. And then 10 years, I just said really, you add on top of that, all these big projects, economic development projects that are coming into the region, really just managing growth and developing as a part of the Piedmont Crescent. We're a little bit off the beaten track, but North Carolina has this crescent that runs from Wilmington through Raleigh, Durham, up to Greensboro, Winston, and then up to Charlotte. And that's really where all the growth in North Carolina is. You actually saw the rural counties drop in population. And so I heard it called the other day, the Atlanta-tropolis or something, is that Atlanta, just like we've got this Piedmont Crescent in North Carolina, you got this crescent of prosperity that flows from Atlanta, Spartanburg, Charlotte, all the way up. And you get, if you ever got high-speed rail pushed between all those communities, you could commute to Atlanta or something. I don't know. It's just add Honda Jet coming in as a low cost, a much lower cost way to fly. Our airport starts looking different. So I don't know. It's amazing.
And I kind of did it much at a higher level, but same thing. So I see us having significant population growth. Back to the pandemic, remote working has kind of, I think, changed the dynamic of recruiting employees. They don't have to necessarily work. They don't have to work where their company is. And the Triad has such great quality of life and has the advantages that Charlotte and Raleigh don't have, starting with traffic and things like that. I think we will recruit and have more growth in our area. I also think the economy will. I mean, we've always been a stable economy. I don't think we're going to boom to quite the level that Charlotte or Raleigh is. I hope not too, but I think it'll stay stable and we'll ride well through all that. I think there's so much money coming in, as Dudley said. We need somebody to put it up on least some time. It's kind of overwhelming. There's so many different projects going on at the same time. Commuter rail or rail through this part. My city council was just talking about that on Monday. It's a high priority for us. We've renovated the station, so we have a station, but we don't have a choo-choo. That's going to take a lot of work to get because not only do we have to get federal funding, think probably the harder train trestle to travel along is getting approval from all of the railroads. So, but I think it will happen. I think it'll happen. I think the market will force it. I think market factors and the younger people who don't value cars the way we do, that will force it as well. So.
I think that in our community as a medical community, I think we're the only 2 hospital-based system in the state, and so the quality of our medical care has made us an attractive retirement community. And I think you'll see it from both. You'll see that, and you'll also see young people wanting to come in and live in our community. When I went down to the beach, I worked down there for 3 years. I saw a bunch of retirees move down there. They moved their Paradise Village, on Topsail Island. They lived there for about 2 years and realized, I'm way more dependent on my physician than I was. And it's a long way to get to my physician. And you see them move into Wilmington if they want to stay down at the beach, or move to a place like Winston-Salem.
All right, great. Well, this has been a good hour, and you two never fail to just work together and collaborate. And this has been a very collaborative hour for sure. We appreciate
bring the barbecue and beer, and you forgot it.
Right, that's right.
Well, we appreciate having you here today, and I want to thank you and for the work that you do as well. And we'll share the link. The link is already there for the ARPA spending City Council this afternoon. And we don't have any other questions in the question area. So I think we are in very good shape here today. Thank you so much. And
Thank you.
Catherine, do you want to say anything before we close out?
Absolutely. Thank you, Melissa. I'd like to thank Lee Garrity and Dudley Watts for being from both the best classes ever, and for being with us today, always giving of your time to Leadership Winston-Salem. I'd like to thank our alumni who dialed in today and are interested in staying in touch with what's happening in our county and city government. And a special thank you to Melissa Thompson, class of 2020, for moderating the discussion and for being the chair of the Alumni Program Council. I'd like to encourage all of our alums to stay tuned for our next Leaders in Lunch in January, as we continue great discussions and opportunities for you to stay engaged with our community. Many thanks and happy holidays to you all.
Bye.
Thank you.